mental health advocate turned life coach. She works with her clients to discover their inner critical voices and address their fears, worries, and expectations revealed through their voices. Cultivate a wise, compassionate inner voice and integrate a loving inner dialogue through embodying self-love and compassion. With further ado, please give a warm welcome to Marissa Delizo.
Hi. Oh my goodness. It's so nice to see you guys. Hi, Annalise, and the people I don't know personally. I am so honored to be doing this, and I am still in shock that this is happening. Woo! Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully this works because we run into so many technical things when it's fine. Okay, can you guys give me a thumbs up to make sure everything's good? Yay, okay, here we go. So today we are gonna be talking about finding authenticity, finding ourselves underneath external conditioning and expectations. Who are we really? The big question, right? Who are we outside of conditioning and expectations from family, friends, or even society? Who are we at our core? What do we value? And when we talk about external conditioning and expectations, I'm talking about the ways that we show up as either because of stereotypes or because we want to be accepted or just because we need to keep the peace. So for the next 20 to 25 minutes or so, we'll be discussing my journey, my childhood, and my catalyst to healing, and how I reconnected with my unconditioned self and intuition. Content warning, we will be talking about depression, child abuse, and suicidal ideation. So if any of that sounds like too much right now, feel free to mute, maybe step away, go get some coffee. Wait, it's 4. Maybe not coffee, water, and come back in about 25 minutes, and we're gonna be doing a more lighthearted group exercise, no hard feelings. I will be asking for a volunteer for this group exercise, so keep that in mind. And yeah, and if you don't wanna participate in the group exercise, but you're okay observing, feel free to send me or anyone on the Aspire team a private message, and we'll make sure to divvy up the breakout rooms accordingly. So before we get started, how are we all doing today? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, cool. Does anyone need anything before we begin? Water, food. I have snacks and water right here, not gonna lie. Feel free to eat and drink, super casual, we're just hanging out. But before we get started, let's just all take a deep breath. And I want us to set our intentions for this little workshop here. My intention is to share my story to help someone feel seen and heard and less alone. To maybe give new information or a new word, maybe spark an aha moment, and to help set the foundation for reclaiming self-love and compassion. Let's take one more deep breath. Right. So, as Carla said in her beautiful introduction, my name is Marissa. I am a mental health advocate turned life coach. I recently received my trauma-informed coaching certification, and I'm working toward my ICF accreditation. My niche is inner dialogue coaching or inner critic coaching, where I help, as Carla said, help my clients discover their inner critical voices and their limiting beliefs, cultivate a loving inner dialogue that's louder than the critic, and create and integrate that voice while embodying self-love and compassion. I am 25 years old. I am a Libra. I am an INFJ, if you guys have done the Myers-Briggs thing. If you're into Enneagrams, I am a 1 wing 9, which means I'm an optimist most of the time. I grew up in the Bay Area, and I still live here with my boyfriend and our pets. I was a swimmer growing up. I love the water. The pandemic and not being able to swim has killed me, but it's fine. My favorite TV show is either The Good Place or New Girl. They're pretty much tied, but I love them both. And my favorite book changes from day to day, but I gave you my top 5 because I'm indecisive, because I'm a Libra. But my favorite is probably East of Eden or Circe. If you hadn't read either of those, I highly recommend. But who am I really? And this is something I'd asked myself a lot growing up, and a lot more when I moved out of my childhood home and began my own healing journey. Growing up, I didn't even know the simple things about myself, like my favorite color, my favorite movie. And as I got older, I began questioning myself, like, do I actually enjoy these things? Or did I just say these things that I enjoyed, to make it seem like I had interests and hobbies? When I had to share things about myself, I never knew what to say, because if I said something like, oh, I'm Asian American, I'm Filipino, I'm Chinese, or I'm a swimmer, or I'm an English major. I never felt enough of those things to even say I was those things. I didn't feel Asian enough because I'm not super connected with either my Filipino or Chinese side. I wasn't the fastest swimmer. I don't like reading the classics, and I feel like it's kind of a prerequisite for English majors to enjoy, like, I can't even think Charles Dickens and all of them, and I don't. Fun fact. But it took me years to realize that the things I do don't have to be who I am. So, oh gosh, wait, go back. So who am I really? I didn't initially set out to be a life coach. I have an English degree from San Francisco State. I wanted to be a book editor. I love reading. But I'd always been interested in psychology and mental health, mainly to figure out what was wrong with me and what was wrong with my mom. She and I never had the best relationship. She was physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive. She'd say things like, I wish you're never born. I'd rather be single and alone with my 2 cats than married and unhappy. Marissa, don't ever have kids. They're not worth it. She was just overall very critical of me and of the world, complaining about everything. And so I grew up feeling really unloved and unwanted, but I couldn't really figure out what was wrong, quote unquote, wrong with me, because it sounded like everyone's mom was like this, that this was just normal, especially with Asian moms. They're overbearing, overprotective, they demand academic success. And so I was like, oh, so this is just how it is, and I need to adapt. I'm the problem. So when I think about why I came an inner dialogue coach, it's because of my own experience trying to mend the disconnect between my conditioned self and my unconditioned self. My conditioned self was a chameleon, changing to fit in wherever she went to please everyone, to be accepted. I was trying to not be too Asian to be accepted by my predominantly white community, and also not too not Asian to please my family, but in both spaces I was considered quote unquote other. I felt like I wasn't fully accepted in either space. And if I talked about how my mom was treating me, like I said, I was just told, well, that's how all Asian moms are. But then I'd be taught in church and school how sacred a mother's love is, how my mom would always love me unconditionally, how she probably just expressed her love differently. But the evidence I had proved otherwise. And so growing up, it created this disorganized attachment. And I think we're all fairly familiar with attachment styles. You've probably heard of like anxious attachment, anxious avoidant, and secure, but there's another one called disorganized, where the child is running away from a threat to a caretaker, to someone who will make them feel safe. But the person, the caretaker, the person who makes them feel safe is also the source of the threat. So it's very confusing for the child. So as I said here in my slide, the chronic exposure to mental and emotional abuse, such as gaslighting, left me feeling confused and disconnected from my overall self. So the chronic gaslighting and dissociating, and not just racially, like I said, left me disconnected. My mom was a notorious gaslighter, and I didn't know what gaslighting was until about like 5 years ago. So what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is a form of emotional and mental abuse. It's the act of manipulating a person into questioning their thoughts, memories, feelings, and emotions, and their goal is to twist the truth, to downplay or dismiss feelings, and to dominate and control the conversation. It can sound like, that's not what I said, you're remembering it wrong. Yeah. So why, if I could have a volunteer, in addition to the things I said about the disconnect I felt within myself, why do you think gaslighting could be problematic when we talk about having a sense of self? Oh, yes. Jess, go ahead.
Well, like as the definition says, it's the force of like manipulating someone's thoughts and making them question themselves. So to have a sense of self, that means you're confident and secure in your values. And if you're being gaslighted and tormented by an outside force, then that will like eat away like your internal values, and it's going to be hard to create a foundation for yourself if someone's constantly destroying that.
Absolutely. Can you lead this part of the workshop? That was spot on. What you just said about confidence, laying the foundation to even know our values. So yeah, exactly what you said. The chronic exposure to gaslighting for me left me feeling turned upside down. It felt like I couldn't trust myself. Like I was always wrong in it. And it reinforced a lot of limiting beliefs that I had about myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm a bad person. I'm a burden. And this fueled, excuse me, sorry. And this fueled this like growing ache of depression in me. So when I first learned about depression, it was through social media, which is not the best way to learn about something so important. And at the time, I learned it through Tumblr. So it was this really toxic, romanticized kind of perspective of depression. It came with this like savior mentality. Someone else has to save me from depression. And in movies and media and TV shows, that's what I saw, people saving people, like every rom-com, right? And because I didn't really have parents to teach me how to navigate through life, I heavily mimicked what I saw on television. So I was super dramatic and cheesy. But I so badly wanted someone to save me, to just read my mind and see how much pain I was in, even though I was smiling and laughing and happy, but they could still see it, you know, how like the person can just tell things aren't okay. I used to fantasize about people constantly asking me like, hey, are you okay? And I would practice saying, no, I'm not okay. And here's why, but I couldn't reach out for help because of that core belief I had that I was a burden. So it reinforced, but no one could read my mind because we were kids. And it reinforced the idea that I was unlovable, that no one cared about me, that the world would be better off without me and I without it. And I carried this core belief, this mindset well into my young adulthood. I was looking for love and validation in all of the wrong places, work, school, dating apps. And it left me feeling drained, exhausted, and unhappy. Until one day I just said, enough. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to not live. I just don't want to live this life. So I chose to take back the power that I was outsourcing to other people. And it was around this time I learned what high functioning depression and anxiety is. I had all the signs and symptoms of clinical depression, but it didn't necessarily impact my overall day-to-day. I was functioning at a higher level. I could still go to work. I could still do the things I needed to do, but this was a double-edged sword because my ability to do things well and successfully kind of negated my declining health in some people's eyes, which is obviously problematic in a lot of ways. More on that another time. So around this time, I got the urge to start a mental health wellness blog. In October of 2019, I started the page that I'm still running that brought me here to y'all today, called Little Bent Not Broken, and my handle is at @littlebent_not_broken if you want to follow me there. Cool. And I started this page with the sole purpose of helping at least one person feel less alone, to help them feel seen and heard, especially if they were going through something similar with their parents or their background upbringing. And it was through my own healing journey, through recognizing triggers in my relationship, that I came face to face with past conditioning and limiting core beliefs that revealed a glaring disconnect between this conditioned inner critic and a quiet, compassionate inner voice. So, oh, don't look at that yet. I have a question. What are limiting core beliefs? Again, you can just raise your hand or unmute yourself.
I believe core beliefs are like the values we have and like what we live by, to say like, oh, this is what I believe in, and to fulfill them. Yes, yeah. So those are core beliefs. Limiting core beliefs are the negative self-critical truths we believe about ourselves. And let me flip my slide. So these limiting beliefs could sound like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not worthy of good things, I was a bad kid for being too needy, no one loves or cares about me. Oh no, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So how do we unlearn these, right? Especially if we've carried them for so long. I've heard things like, well, just talk to yourself like you would your best friend. And I could see how that would be helpful to get that, to kind of take yourself, or to view yourself in a different perspective, in a different light. But it's hard to do when you don't genuinely love and respect yourself in the same way. Especially when there's that inner disconnect. You don't really know who you are, and who you think you are has been chronically, is that the word? Yes, I'm sorry. Chronically criticized and ridiculed and shamed. I love my best friend. I get emotional thinking about how much I love her. And of course, I'd never tell her that she's worthless or dumb or stupid or that no one cares about her.
but I couldn't say the same things to myself, that I am worthy, I'm not dumb, I'm smart, I'm knowledgeable, I'm learning, I am worthy of love and support. Because at the time I didn't love myself at all. And I didn't have quote unquote evidence to show myself I was worthy of that love or support. I used to, and I still can feel very uncomfortable when I get compliments or a sniff of support or love. It feels so overwhelming and kind of foreign. Some of you know my boyfriend, and you can ask him. I cry anytime he does something sweet for me. Even if it's just like I wake up to breakfast, I'm crying. We're sitting on the couch playing video games. I got us both killed. And he's like, no, it's okay. And I'm crying. Or I'm just happy and I'm crying. I cry a lot. Sorry, we're still not there. Okay, reconnecting to who we are at our core underneath all of the conditioning from family, friends, peers, society can feel overwhelming and scary. Who am I without blank? For me, it was, who am I without my shitty relationship with my mom? Sorry, I'm cursing. Because at one point, that was a critical part of my identity. You know, who am I when I'm not depressed? Who am I when I'm not hypervigilant, anxious, scared, overthinking, hypercritical, judgmental? Because these are the ways I saw myself, and these are the beliefs I carried about myself. But in realizing that, I realized who I wasn't and who I didn't want to be. I wasn't my mom. I realized the hypercriticism and the hyper judgmental habitual thoughts about myself and the world weren't my actual thoughts. They were a script that had been on repeat for so long that I adopted them as my own script, as my own thoughts, and they went against who I was at my core, what I believed in. Coming home to myself has been the scariest, hardest, but most rewarding thing I've ever done. So, how do we unlearn these limiting beliefs? How do we come back to ourselves and rediscover our true selves? For me, it looked like reconnecting with my inner child and my intuition, but I had no idea where to begin. But that's kind of why, and this is going to sound very silly, and it's okay if you judge me for this. That's why I like personality quizzes, why I did the Myers-Briggs, why I took the Enneagram test. I think I've done like human design. I've done, I know there are so many more out there. And I've done pretty much all the BuzzFeed quizzes, but but it was like, oh yeah, that sounds like me, or oh yeah, that fits. It just gave me some little sense of self, like the building blocks to figuring out who I am. You know, as a Libra, I value balance, harmony. I value seeing both sides of the story. As an INFJ, I am an introvert. I identify with that. I'm definitely more feeling over logic. And as a one wing 9, I do appreciate balance and justice and equality. And I like seeing both sides of the story. I like knowing everything about everything. But that's not all of who I am, and that's not what I want my identity to be made up of. So, for the next 2 minutes, I want you guys to write down, or either write down or just think in your head, what limiting beliefs you might be carrying about yourself. Ready? Go. And you can answer the questions I have on the slide too. In addition to what beliefs you carry, how are these serving you? Would you like to change any of them? And where do you think these beliefs came from? Also, totally okay if you can't come up with anything right now. I'm not going to ask you to share, and it's not a quiz. So okay, let's see. So I'm not going to ask you guys to share, but real quick, was there anything that came up that maybe was surprising or unexpected?
I feel like what I wrote, I kind of like already knew subconsciously, but like writing it out really made me like see it for like what it is and like kind of like realize and then like I guess think about like solutions because like I haven't really thought about like what would I like to change, how would I like to change that belief. And so yeah, I feel like it's kind of like redirected me on like a more positive path.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. Thank you. Awesome. Anyone else?
Hi, everyone. I'll share. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let's see. I think I'm quite older, a lot older than a lot of you here, but still, I mean, I think that, you know, even throughout my life or career, I've just had this internalized belief that I'm not doing it right, or I'm not smart enough, or I can't trust myself enough. But it's like, no, like I have known things since I was really small. And I've known like how I feel and that it's okay to do what I do. But I think those beliefs, even though I can say I've like overcome them, I haven't. Like they're internalized in some small way. And so, yeah, this is very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, and that's the thing too about these beliefs is that when we've carried them around for so long, it's kind of like a habit. When you think about these things on repeat, or if you hear them from external sources and they reaffirm them and you just hold on to them, and it's a lot harder to unlearn them. And honestly, they might not ever go away, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean you're stuck with them. It just means that we have to keep feeding the compassionate inner voice that's louder than these critical thoughts. So how do we unlearn them? What helped me was reconnecting to my unconditioned self and getting back to basics. What are my core values? So what are core values? And I believe Yayi gave the perfect description. These are the values that are intrinsically true. Yeah, and important to us within our human experience, that no matter what situation we're in, these values hold true. Regardless of who you're with or where you are, you value, for example, you always value honesty. In every relationship, honesty is number one or important. You value compassion, respect, empathy. But you know that sickening feeling deep in your gut when you say yes, when you really mean no, or when we agree with someone to feel included even though we don't agree, or we make ourselves small to keep the peace, or swallow our words so we don't come off as the know-it-all, or pretend not to care when we start dating a person because we don't want to seem too clingy, or just not care about anything at all because apparently that's cool and I don't get that. Or as we witnessed in the last few years, the ugly injustices happening in the world, or the harmful truths that some of our friends and family believe. These are just a few examples of the things that may go against our core values. And when we betray our own core values, it can further disconnect us from, well, us. When we know and honor our values, we're more likely to find life fulfilling and meaningful. These values influence how we show up in the world, how we treat others, and they give us a clearer sense of direction. But when we keep going against these values, life may feel unbalanced or unsettled. So it is time for a group exercise. Oh, that reminds me. So I'm going to drop in the chat, if I could ever get my chat box back up, this exercise that we are going to be doing. Why can't I get to the chat? Zoom is so weird. Okay, so I'm going to explain the exercise, but if possible, please open this document and it'll give you some more information and you can read while I am going over it. So this core values exercise we're about to do, I actually first experienced in my coaching certification course. And these were the values that came up for me. Some of them I knew subconsciously, kind of like what Rachel is saying, but I didn't actually realize how important it was to me. And some of these were very, very shocking. So I apparently, and I do believe, I value trust, knowledge, commitment, determination, dedication, resilience, respect, love, cleverness, balance, and harmony. But the chronic exposure to the abuse I experienced in childhood and the need to find acceptance and validation in external sources caused me to betray a lot of these core values. And it's kind of funny to see how the things that I value are the things I didn't necessarily experience as a kid. So I'm really excited to see what core values you guys come up with, if it's things you already knew or if it's anything new. So here's what we're going to do. These are some of the questions that you will be asking the people you're paired up with. I believe we are going to be doing groups of 3. Yeah, groups of 3, and it'll be about 5 to 7 minutes each way. So person A will ask person B will ask person C. Hi. My boyfriend just came home. And then we in the chat will send reminders when it's time to switch, and we'll come back for a debrief. And my hope is that by having a deeper understanding of our core values, we're able to show up more authentically moving forward. As a reminder, as Carla said, we need to practice Zoom etiquette. This is a safe, non-judgmental space, so please be kind and courteous and show respect for the people you're with. If something does happen, if there is some kind of conflict, feel free to exit out of the breakout room and come hang out in the main room with me and the Aspire team, and we'll just hang out. So, can I get a volunteer? And I'm going to stop my screen share for just a second. By the way, can everyone see the document, please? Put in the chat or give me a thumbs down if you are not able to access that Google document. Okay, yes, thumbs up. Yes. These reactions are so cool. Oh, thank you. Wow. Okay. Sorry, now I'm just trying to reorganize my desktop. Do I have a volunteer to do this exercise with me? Just a little demo. Super no pressure. This is not like this is not a coaching call. This is not a therapy thing.
I'll do it.
Yay, Annalise, hi, how are you?
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm great.
Yay, thank you so much for being here. Okay, so are you okay? Do you need anything before we begin?
Good.
Okay, this conversation is recorded and we are doing it in front of people. Is that okay?
Sure.
Cool. And then if you see me looking down, I am just writing things and I forgot to grab my pen. I am just writing some stuff down. So my first question for you, Annalise, is...
Dog is knocking on my door if you hear noise in the background.
Oh, no, let her in. So when have you felt the most proud of yourself or otherwise?
Probably this past November when I quit my 9-to-5 to start my own business.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what feelings came up when you felt this way?
I always get really emotional when I think about it. But I mean, lots of pride, and I feel like I've really stepped out of I'm 31, and I would say like the first 25 years of my life I lived to please other people. I did what I was told. I kept my head down. I showed up to look pretty. I got a master's degree, and I realized it just wasn't aligned with me. It wasn't right. And I, decided to finally be true to myself and do my own thing, and really honor myself.
I love that. I love hearing that. And how were other people in your life impacted by this?
My parents freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
Marissa, actually, you coached me through telling my dad I was leaving my job. And you were amazing. But it was hard. It still is hard. People don't like when you make changes that aren't in their favor anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also have a lot of support from my friends, or like my soul family, who really appreciate me and celebrate me for what I'm doing, instead of focusing on the fact that I'm not exactly, doing what I went to school for, or focusing on like the lack of, or what's missing, or what's not set in my life yet. But there are lots of people that actually appreciate me and celebrate me exactly as I am.
I love that. I'm getting emotional for you. Who is one person, living or dead, that you admire?
I'm gonna say Demi Lovato. Been kind of watching her documentaries recently, and I think she has really done a lot in terms of sharing her story and explaining things that have happened to her in a way that I've never heard anyone explain before. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened to me too. And it's just, I find her really inspiring, and she also beat a drug addiction, which is really freaking hard. I lost a cousin to heroin, so I really admire people that can move on from that. So yeah, I really admire her. She's very strong, and she's just like a badass female.
It's very true. Why are strength and badassery important to you?
Because before I started healing, before I started doing inner work, before I started like getting in touch with myself at all, I was like a mindless, powerless robot. I was like a marionette, like a puppet on a string, and I guess no power or control over my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like everything always comes down to control, but yeah, I'm taking control.
Hell yeah, you are. If you walked into a room full of friends or family and they didn't know that you were there, what would you like them to be saying about you?
Ooh. This is interesting because I feel like I've always wanted my family to appreciate more of my inner qualities, or like energetic qualities, as opposed to the way I look or like academic accomplishments. But I would hope that they would say that I'm kind and that they love that I'm in their life.
Mm-hmm. A few more questions for you. Do you believe you're kind?
Yeah, I know it.
Good. Do you love the life you're living?
Well, sort of. Transition, yeah, definitely a transitional stage right now. But even though I have like no money at the moment, I'm so much happier and so much more fulfilled than when I was burnt out to a crisp from my 9-to-5 in the mental health field, just completely overworked and underpaid and using my energy for no good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just writing something else down. Do you think you're inspiring?
Ooh. I mean, I guess this is like one of those uncomfortable like compliment moments. But I have had friends tell me that, watching me leave my job and start my own business is inspiring, and that I am inspiring to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm just going to go ahead and say, yeah.
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 I think so too. Do you think you're strong?
Yes, I know I'm strong.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you're a badass?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that. I love the confidence in that. You and Demi Lovato would be best friends.
I want to hang out with her.
Right? Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to write down a few more things, and then I will read you back the list I compiled from you. And then as I go through the list, you can just tell me, yeah, that feels accurate, or no, that doesn't really feel accurate. And it's okay either way. I won't be upset.
Okay.
I'm also going to go through my little list. Okay, Annalise, would you like to hear what I came up for you?
Yes.
You value determination.
Yeah. Big time.
Kindness.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Spirituality.
Yeah.
I know. That one was kind of easy because we follow each other on Instagram and we've talked. Self-respect.
Yeah. And that one feels a little weird to say, even because of like, old self-conditioning. You still feel that. That's the thing about like limiting core beliefs too, is I feel like some of them never actually go away, but you learn to observe them instead of believe them.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That. Someone write that down. That was, like if any takeaway from what we've talked about today, let that be the blurb. And don't even quote me, quote Annalise, like credit her for that. Jeez, that was so good. You value authenticity.
Yes, definitely.
You value strength.
Mm-hmm.
Autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Compassion.
Yes, definitely.
Genuine connection.
Yeah.
And harmony.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much for doing this exercise with me.
Yeah, this was actually really neat.
Did anything come up for you? Any insights, aha moments?
I mean,
and it's okay if not, like,
yeah, no, it
casual.
is really cool to take the time to like reflect on my life, because sometimes you just get so caught in it, and especially if you're in a transition, thinking about the future, it's hard to kind of like take a step back and be like, wait a minute, look at everything I've already done this far, look at what I'm actually doing. So yeah,
it's so important to celebrate those wins, right? We can get so caught up in, I'm still, either this trigger keeps coming up, this wound keeps coming up, I still have so much farther to go, when you've come already so far.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your vulnerability and your words of wisdom. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, that's basically the exercise. So we're going to be breaking you up into groups of 3. Oh, I got to do this real quick. So again, if you have any questions, let us know. Please DM me or DM someone in Aspire and let them know if you do not want to participate and you'd rather just observe, and that's totally fine. Let's see. Perfect. Okay. And is there anything else before I break you guys up or put you into breakout rooms? Not break. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say.
I do have a question. I wrote down the 3 questions you had posed on that document, but when you did your demo, it was a lot more detailed. So to what extent are we to replicate the demo versus just addressing the 3 questions?
So those 3 questions are just kind of like a guide. So as you feel called or as you feel led, you can ask other questions. That's what happened for me. I didn't have the other questions in front of me. It was just, I was hearing some other things and I wanted to get kind of deeper into things she was saying. So if you feel called to ask even other questions, like none of the questions that are on the screen, that's totally fine too. So you can make this and ask the questions and make it customizable to you, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, guys, we are going to break you up into rooms. All right. I'll send a note when it's time to switch, and then we'll come back and debrief. Okay? All right. Have fun. Oh, wait. Any insights? Any like aha moments? Did any of the core values that your partner or your group highlighted feel accurate for you? Or maybe not accurate, and that's okay too.
I can share.
Okay.
So for the 3rd question, the walking into a room of like a room full of your family, what would you want them to say? So I'm sharing because I feel like it's a very like Asian kind of concern that we all might have. So it might be nice to just like vocalize it. So I was thinking like I would really, really want my family, my parents to say like they don't need me. But not that we don't love you kind of way, but more so just like we don't need you to like worry about us type of way. Because I think as they're like entering old age, I'm like thinking how they'll need to go to nursing home one day and just like, but will there be like an Asian community for them? Like, are they going to feel isolated? And even just things like I feel like whatever moves I'm making in terms of like graduating college and going to grad school and thinking about certain like life steps that are really major, like how will that affect my parents and like financially, and in terms of if I want to move to a different part of the world, like that will also be limited by them being here in the state that I live. So just like a lot of life decisions almost like based on my parents. So I want them to say that like we're self-sufficient, we can take care of ourselves and we don't need you.
I like that insight. Thank you so much for sharing, because yeah, that is something I know my own family too is they haven't said it outright, but it is like, we are expecting you to take care of us when we're old and gray. Although my dad's Filipino and he's like, just leave me on a mountain in Baguio and I'll be fine. But but yeah, even just with my grandparents, I see that with my mom and her siblings, my grandparents are getting up there and with things they've been planning, like, well, who's my grandma going to stay with? Like, putting her in a home is not even an option. It's like, is she going to be floating around from sibling to sibling, or is she going to take a permanent residence with one of us? So yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and thank you for sharing that perspective. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. I hope this was helpful. I hope, like I said, you have a foundation to move forward, living an authentic and wholehearted life. And yeah, so I believe Carla is going to wrap us up here. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me or email me. And I think Carla is going to provide all that information, so.
Yes, thank you so much, Marissa. Thank you for joining us for another Aspiring Talk. Tonight you led us through your journey and experience through gaslighting, depression, and limiting beliefs in a session of just identifying our own core values. I hope all of you shared your some love and compassion and will continue to do so in your life. So with that, we'd like to thank you all for joining us. We will be sending out slide deck and recap in an email, and we encourage you to follow us all on our various social media sites, and Marissa at littlebent_notbroken on Instagram. Socials will be in the chat. At this point, we'd love to invite you to join us for additional 15 minutes if you have that for a Q&A. Otherwise, have a lovely evening, and we hope to see you at our next event, May 12th, with Shannon Magnellante. Thank you so much, everyone.